Well,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Nick Zulovich, part of the team at Cherokee Media Group, and we're so glad you've joined us for our session titled, Discover the Driving Factors to Move Used Inventory Faster, with Angela Mancuso and Rick Dearden of LotLinx. But before we get into today's session, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. We are recording today's webinar, so keep watch of your inbox for a link so you can review the presentation and share it with your colleagues. And if you have any questions, you can use the chat function here on Zoom, and we'll get to those questions after the presentation. So that's enough from me. Let's get to our experts. Truly showing the road warrior that she is, Angela Mancuso and Rick Dearden of LotLinx. Take it away.
thank you, Nick. Again, my name is Rick Dearden with LotLinx. And I've been in the industry 27 years, 17 years in the retail side, 10 years as a vendor, and we have seen some trends in the automotive industry, that's for sure. So Angela, you want to share some about you?
Yeah, so I've been on the retail side as well, mostly on the used car side. I'm a used car girl. I've learned everything from pricing to auction sourcing and eventually having to re-wholesale the cars, which is not something any of my stores are doing now, but I've mostly done that. And then I've been on the vendor space for about 5 years, 2 years with LotLinx.
Awesome.
About 6 years, 2 years with LotLinx, yep.
So for the folks listening, we're lucky enough to share some industry insights. LotLinx, first and foremost, is a data company, and obviously data drives a lot of decisions, and we're seeing a lot of factors. The used car industry itself is, we're seeing in today's climate, we're seeing depreciation happening again. Angela and I talked about this pretty religiously this year. When used cars were appreciating last year, it was the need to retail them versus because they could hold on to them for 90 days, they'd be worth more than they bought them for. But now this year, we're seeing that trend reverse a little bit. So, and now we're seeing a depreciation. It actually went through a little bit more of a depreciation. So it has been a weird year, to say the least. Don't you agree, Angela?
I definitely agree, yes. And the things that we would hold on to and then, like you said, bring to auction, those days are over. So nobody's doing that anymore because you can't get what you got or what you pay.
So again, as used cars depreciate, you buy a car in March. If you're holding on to it for 60 days, 90 days, we're seeing that you cannot wholesale them to get out, or maybe just lose your recon. Those days are starting to go away. And the old industry where it used to depreciate at 5% month over month, we're seeing those more and more this year. We expect it to stabilize and depreciate on the asphalt of a dealership just like it does someone's driveway. So these are some articles we saw from the industry-wise, Cox Automotive, Automotive News, CNBC. They're all kind of echoing the same verbiage. Obviously, the Manheim, if you guys in the automotive industry, you guys see this quite a bit. The Manheim market report that shows the indexes month over month, and if you can see the last month, it is taking a pretty decent dip. But Angela, talking to dealers, have you kind of had similar conversations?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my stores that, were using a holistic strategy and putting all their inventory out there at one time, they were getting lots and lots of hits and leads and chats on cars under 20K. But once new cars to hit that, hit the lots, everything over 20K started sitting on them and they couldn't, again, re-wholesale them because they were in them for too much. So that became definitely something they weren't interested in doing.
Yep. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about new car inventory is impacting, but obviously it's impacting used car prices because when new car inventory coming out, stabilizing on prices, we're going to see some new car dealers, even go below. There's no more $10,000 market adjustments on new. That's causing the used car values to drop. We're seeing from compact cars to SUVs to vans. There's been about a consistent 10% price difference year over year on the used car industry. So obviously the depreciation is coming, used car values are there, and this is straight out of from Manheim. So we talk about new cars. We're seeing inventory levels increase. In fact, a lot of our clients, Angela, if you've asked to have us assist with new cars, and that's got to impact the used car sell rate. And so this is straight out of S&P Global, that it says based on how many new cars are advertised, 300,000 more new cars today than there was just 6 months ago. And year over year, there's a 72% increase. Are you seeing the same thing where you are?
Yep, definitely seeing the same thing. And for, certain makes like Hyundai and Nissan that have, prices that are not on the super high end and that's all they carry, they're even having, more troubles with selling their used cars because the new cars are similarly priced as the used cars. So
that's definitely impacting, especially late models. And of course, rates don't think they're going to come down anytime this year. We've seen some loss. Surprisingly, the 0% is back. I know it's for a limited 36 months, but even for a Ford F-150, number one selling vehicle, for many years, that is now incentivized at 3.9. We pulled some data from Experian. Even a 700 Beacon is now, the average interest rate is still about 9% on a used car. So when you're buying 30, 40, $50,000 cars, 9% versus a 3.9 on new makes a pretty big difference.
right, especially when customers are coming in and they're underwater already on their trade.
Yeah.
Big time. It's a big thing right now.
Yep, definitely. And with the higher interest rates, it's hard to get them out. And of course, at LotLinx, we have, data company first. This is a national market data. And I know you're in this report religiously, especially when we talk about, we could deep dive. This report can get as granular as a certain model. Angela, you talk about this report.
Yeah, so I use this report when, let's say, like I dial it down to, like, if I've got a CDJR store with a Toyota Tundra that's two-wheel drive, I use this report because I can go into different markets and look at, like, for example, Dallas, Texas, and Southern Oklahoma doesn't have a problem with two-wheel drives. Where here in Kansas City, we do. So if I'm working with a store and he's like, where do I put this car? I got to get rid of this before winter hits because it's not selling in Kansas City anyways, even though it's summer. I use this to see where it's better, right? Like I look up the exact car and see where the demand is up versus what it's down.
Yep. So obviously conventional wisdom, if you're buying, when you make your money when you buy the used car. That's the old ad saying, right? You don't make it when you sell it, you make it when you buy it. And so, conventional wisdom, you try and buy cars that are high in demand. But also we look at sometimes is the buyers relative to the number of vehicles. And sometimes we have to look at this. Right now, there's a lot of data out there around shoppers versus buyers. And so we're going to talk about that in a second, about how Jeep Wrangler, one of the most popular used cars out there, has a huge shopper demand, but a very similar buyer demand to, say, a traditional Jeep Cherokee. So this chart, as we see, this is some data from LotLinx, is that what we're seeing across search engines, across searches in general, third parties, Jeep Wrangler, very popular car, a lot of eye candy, a lot of dreaming. Oh, maybe one day I'll buy a Jeep Wrangler that has a toy. A lot of budget is being spent. A lot of shoppers are there eating away marketing budgets because, as you see on this chart, shopper intensity is through the roof, but the sell rate, which is the red line, is not much different than what a Cherokee or Grand Cherokee sell for. So as what LotLinx and Angela and I do is that not only do we help move inventory more effectively, more efficiently, is that we take data like this and realize where it makes the most sense to help advise where to spend the money. If you're just advertising traditional methods with Jeep as a keyword, there's a good chance that it may get eaten up for a person who's shopping but not buying. So we always do this as a practice. We kind of Google, Google search engine, Google drives 95% of all car sales, either if it goes to a third party or organically. Google's gotten in the game of VLAs, but I did a common, Google will recommend, as we like to call them, the predictive text micro moments, where Google says, hey, Ford F-150 for sale near me. That works for cars, coffees, Chinese food, you name it. They're always trying to say near me, right? And so the first thing you see are the VLAs. And if you look at just the handful of VLAs that we see here, 2014 to 2020, am I in the market to buy any of those cars? No. Then we got new car ads. Again, on my search was so generic, I didn't even tell if I was looking for used or new. That's what Google tried to put in there. And so some new car ads are now burning up budget. And but new car price, I'm definitely in the market for a used car. more shoppers. But again, am I looking for 2014? Probably not. Am I looking for crew cab, extended cab, 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive? You know, a lot of variances. When we do high funnel advertising, you're getting on a lot of shopper intensity, but not as much buyer intensity. And so, Angela, I know we talk about this quite a bit. What do you share with some of your dealers when they start talking about how much money they're investing on Google and they realize that it's such a high funnel area where they're spending money in places that may not matter for 3 months?
To be honest, most of my stores don't spend a lot of money on inventory specific Google, because what they have come to realize is that when you're buying keywords, like you mentioned, like used F-150 near me, you're competing with the major players in the area, right, for those same ad dollars, and likely being outspent by big companies that are spending buku money on Google just to come above you, and you're just trying to get one 2020 Ford F-150 XLT in front of people that want to buy it, which is extremely expensive on Google. And when we look at the VLAs, and especially in the back end, and we see what vehicles are actually getting like clicked on, it's usually cheap or it's usually new. It's not usually used.
Nope. And again, high funnel keywords, they're designed to try and get as many impressions and how many times you appeared in the search, but does that really help sell a car today? And again, myself, I don't remember what site I was on last week, let alone yesterday. So I'm more focused on what drove me to that site when I was ready to transact in the next, say, 2 to 14 days versus 3 months from now. So
yeah, and
again,
you know, on the VLAs too, I mean, it's becoming a little bit more crowded now that everyone is doing it. It was it was very cool, and everybody got really excited and threw some money at it, and it was like, ooh, my cars are at the top of Google. Now it's like, ooh, so is everyone else's. So it's kind of the same exact thing that we've been battling on, especially on the used car side for so long. And with, you know, even though used cars aren't selling as quickly, there's still not a ton of one used car, right? Like used cars are unique, and you're not likely to find, you know, 100 2020 Ford F-150s in a 30-mile radius where you used to be able to here in Kansas City all day long. So I think that's important too.
Yep. Again, vague shopping. We're trying to sell specific used car, specific crew cab, 4-wheel drive, you know, 8-cylinder, price point, 40 grand, dark colors. I mean, we start to get VIN specific vehicles. You just get lost in shuffle when you start doing searches across Google or third parties where now you're one of 3,000 vehicles plus. So this is kind of as we analyze data, we're looking at days of sale, we're looking at inventory levels. Now, obviously, this is a 2019 or newer, going more towards late models. We watch trends like this. This is important for us to know how our makes and models. Because one thing LotLinx has, there's two prongs of what we do. One is our audience. The other component is we watch pretty much every VIN in every market to see what the trend is. And so, as an industry-wise, earlier this year, the F-150 and the Ram 1500, they had a sell rate, 20, 25 days. That was back in March. As we see the trend this year, as we saw the highest peak was last November, and now it's starting to trend back towards those ways. Again, just the segments we're talking about, days of sale is important because we're talking about this because cars are depreciating, but they're staying on lots longer. That is not a great recipe to for profitability. As we see here, obviously the disparity in sold to holding, obviously hold ratios are big. The longer you hold a car in traditional times and now current times, is the potential for bigger losses. There are still some cars out there that there's no new car demand. They're still holding value, but in general, you have to get down granular. You can't just say I have 100 cars in inventory and my average days on lot is 28 days. Holistic conversations, you have to get more granular. Don't you agree, Angela?
Absolutely, yeah. And it just, again, it coincides with the fact that when CDJR released a bunch of cars and Ford released a bunch of cars, those are the two models that they released the most of, and all dealers got them. And so now the used one, the pre-owned ones, are competing in that same space.
Mm-hmm. So even light trucks have been alone, the Ram 1500, again, a higher ratio indicating greater market scarcity. So again, we look at all of that when we start analyzing where to help dealers invest their money advertising wise. You don't want to spend money on something that has a 10-day sale rate, but you also look out for ones that have a longer sale rate. How do we get to sell that car faster? So Shopper intensity, again, we talked about this earlier before. Shoppers is different than buyers. We talked about that as a dealership. If I have someone walking in the front door, I got someone with a check in hand, ready to buy a vehicle. That is an intense buyer. Someone coming in, gathering information. My lease is up in 3 months. I'm looking to look at, several different makes and models before I make a decision. That is still a valuable customer, but they're 90 days out for making any kind of decision. So there's value to both parties, but when you're advertising specific inventory, especially used, and that car shouldn't be here 2-3 months from now, you have to know the difference between shopper intensity versus buyer intensity. And it's something that we look at here. This is a comparison of light duty trucks, Chevy Silverado, Sierra, F-150 and Ram. And of course, the days of sale. The Rams have the shopper demand is through the roof, but the days of sale is not much more difference than the rest of the industry. So this is information that we stress to dealers, like you have to know your inventory at a VIN level. Your people you advertise with, whether you consider doing business with LotLinx or whoever, should be able to analyze your spend at a VIN level. That's what we talked about, how the difference between what we do versus having one site have all your inventory displayed. Know specifically where your budget is going per car. This is just kind of a map. We talked about this too, is sell down rates when it comes to metro dealers, outlying stores. Again, new car inventory kind of is driving this. The allocation for the bigger stores is usually they get the most cars, most new cars. They're turning used car faster. This is where some people have when you're competing in a certain DMA. How do you compete with to be competitive with your used car depreciating? Is a lot has to do with how new cars are turning, used cars are turning, and this isn't unique to Minneapolis. We see this in quite a few metros. The outlying stores, you don't have the big allocation, so you maybe hold on to cars longer. Maybe you're trying to make a certain aggressive PRU versus maybe just moving metal like we used to do. Again, the old way is probably too cutthroat. Maybe the way we were doing a year ago was probably a little bit, I say, beneficial for a lot of my retail friends. But regardless, you got to be careful on your sell rate markdown. And what we're seeing is if you're in these outlying areas, you got to have a more specific approach. You don't have the luxury of the OEMs just feeding you new cars left and right, which is going to help you use cars and trades, things of that nature. So, Angela, you're in Kansas City from Minneapolis. How do you see dealers with sell rate on the outlying stores versus metro?
So certainly, most of my stores that are in the KC metro area don't even advertise used cars. Like they really don't, because they don't need the help. They don't use LotLinx to bring in people on these because they're used car very. Whereas if you go about an hour to rural either way, those stores are sitting on inventory, and that's because everybody now is completely aggressively priced. There's really not any outliers as far as so people are going to go where it's quicker. And for the rural stores, they're having to get creative with how do we get in front of the people in Kansas City without being in Kansas City and not have to mark these down.
So the one thing that's something that LotLinx provides as well, like using this map as an example, if you could see it, okay, if I was in Hudson, Minnesota, my backyard's only going to have so many buyers. I mean, that's just simple common sense. I can only sell but so much in my backyard. And so we always say, go fish where the fish are, go hunt where the deer are, wherever now is when you consider. But what LotLinx, something that we do, this is why it's kind of important, is like if the right buyer for that used car isn't in your backyard, how do you attract those buyers? Well, that's where we, as a company, we do the heavy lifting, and we kind of can find the buyer. It could be in downtown Minneapolis, it could be in Elk River, it could be on the southeast side, it could be another state on certain trims and models, right? So again,
Right.
When you're looking at just your backyard, or that's where you target advertising, maybe your Facebook campaign is targeting your backyard, it might be good for branding, it might be good to sell, new car traffic, make some models. When it comes to selling specific used cars, the right buyer isn't always going to be in your backyard. So how do I, get out of my lower density, I guess, populated area and find the right buyer for it? And that's something that LotLinx and Angela, I know is specifically, she likes to challenge. She'll take any dealership that says they have a EV vehicle, right? Oh my gosh, that's been a big topic for EVs, is for new or used. Is help me sell my EVs, and And so we've done a lot of conversation about infrastructure on that. What are your thoughts on EVs?
Yeah, I mean, especially when the EV craze kind of started, right? People went to auction and bought buku amounts of Teslas, right? Like used Teslas was like, you could find 10 to 15 on any given, doesn't matter the make of the dealership. I saw them everywhere. But then what we really quickly found is that they started, aging on them. And so we looked at some different infrastructure things that are in place here in Kansas City that are not quite as developed, especially for my rural stores that are an hour and a half out of Kansas City. Like there's nowhere to charge them. So we had to get creative and put these Teslas in, using a website that shows you exactly where the fast chargers are. That's where the demand was because people had the infrastructure built. So for my rural store specifically that had these used Teslas, they didn't have to mark them down. They were already way less than the cities that already had the infrastructure. We just had to put their car in front of the buyers that lived in those cities so that the decision was pretty easy.
So common sense, right, is you go where the fish are. If the buyer demand is higher in a more metro area, even for example, we were talking about Wisconsin earlier, how Madison, Wisconsin has a big infrastructure for charging stations. Even Milwaukee's bigger, but Madison was better equipped. That's maybe the better place to target EV buyers because that's probably the buyer demand is higher there. We use our market data report. We look at that and say, hey, if I was a dealer in Minneapolis or even Kansas City, how much does LotLinx charge to advertise cars in Madison, Wisconsin?
Right.
How much?
Same price, no matter
Same
what.
price, yeah.
Same price, right. And I mean, this is like, think of the luxury dealers that we have that have like, $200,000 used cars. Like when you're going to buy a $200,000 used Maserati, you don't care if it's in Kansas City, you know what you want. Even if you live in Atlanta, you're going to come across on Google, especially a lot of different Maserati stores, but you may not think of Kansas City as a place that even has a Maserati store or whatever, but you do know what you want. And so the luxury dealers that are in, even Kansas City is not a hot market for luxury, but the person that's buying a $200,000 used car will fly to Kansas City all day long to get it from a store that they probably never heard of.
Or a lot of dealers a lot of dealers are getting a lot more, trying to compete with the CarMax, Carvana sales approach. Is they're even offering delivery, not so much free delivery, outside their backyard, but they're still incorporating. Hey, we'll appease that audience, and we can incorporate, a shipping agency for X amount of dollars to help give it to you. So we see a lot of stores who are realizing that if I'm going to get aggressive in the used car market and not just sell in my backyard and really get into I just call it, horizontal inventory versus vertical inventory. Horizontal is every make and model. Vertical is the same make and model, stack them on top of each other. But get aggressive, and that's what they partner up with us. And again, the dealers are trying to gain that audience nationwide or even outside their 30-mile radius of their store. They utilize us. And Angela, I think, almost takes as a personal challenge to help move that inventory.
I may have made overlays once or twice in my days.
Yeah, so I know that's right. So again, for the folks that are listening, again, we're just seeing the trends. The biggest thing we're trying to take away is take control, not just used car inventory. We see a lot of deals. We talk holistically. I have 100 used cars. My average days is this. I'm selling my inventory 12, 15 times a year. Great. But are you losing money on a certain percentage of cars? Is there some pain points in your inventory that you just wish you had? As a car guy, when I was appraising cars, he brought me. I remember Mini Coopers. I was scared to death of them. I think I only ever made money on a Mini Cooper working at a Chevy store. But if I had something like LotLinx, I can go find the buyer for the Mini Cooper. I wouldn't be as hesitant putting back a rough book on it just because I was scared of it. Not that any car guy has ever done that before,
right.
but no. So again, Angela, I want you to chime in here. But LotLinx, the beauty of what we do is we never ask dealerships for their entire inventory. We never ask them to. We ask them, where can we help to make the most money? Where can we help to sell cars more effectively, more efficiently? And what batch inventory is that? And so we want to truly partner up because we're not going to, there's value in, your name, there's value organic traffic, there's value what you're currently doing with that in your advertising. But I think we've all seen, no matter how good, effective our marketing strategies can be, there's obviously, it's not bulletproof because cars are still aging and cars don't sell. It could be a car problem, but in most cases, it's a visibility problem. That's something that here at LotLinx, we definitely can fix. And again, as I said, the people who you're currently advertising with, that your cars are depreciating now, sitting on the lot, again, I'm not saying those are bad sources, but as you give 100% of your inventory to these sources, we know 100% of inventory is not being seen. And so, Angela, we're going to wrap up here in a couple minutes. But Angela, share a couple stories that, that when you took someone's inventory, realized that how many of your cars are actually being seen across channels and versus how we fill those holes.
Yeah, I mean, so, when I first started with the store, we look at Google Analytics in a thing that makes sense to a car girl like me because it's on an inventory management platform. And we look at the cars that are aged that don't have any visibility. I see a lot of off-brand used on a dealership's website that basically are priced like 94% to market. Miles are low. There's not many competitors that they have in the market on that particular vehicle, yet it's been there for 102 days and has only been seen on the website a total of like 6 times. Well, it's hard to get a Toyota buyer to a Chevy store website. So what we do a lot of off-brand used campaigns to start, because that's sometimes the segment of inventory some of my stores are seeing age. I work collaboratively. One of my favorite things about what we do is that you don't have to be scared of taking in any vehicle. Like you were saying, that Mini Cooper is fine. But I love it when my stores will text me a stock number and say, hey, I do not sell these in my area. Like I already know, but this guy, I got him in a new car. I had to take his trade. I can't wholesale it because, you still have got to give them good money for their trade so you can get the deal done. And the wholesale market is what it is. So where can you help me sell it? And I'll get creative and we'll put it in like a 2-wheel drive Toyota Tundra in Dallas or in Oklahoma or somewhere that isn't Kansas City where people like 2-wheel drive trucks where they don't hear. So it's really, I think that, like you said, operating on the VIN level does add that extra layer of not being afraid of acquisition as much as because if you don't sell something right and you're gonna have to re-wholesale it and you're going off MRR when you're buying, things could get rocky.
Well, yeah, MRs, remember that stuff that's sold versus stuff not sold. So the one thing we always talk about here at LotLinx is obviously when we acquire an inventory, when we buy cars, especially 100% on used, is that we look at things at the VIN level. Does this car need tires versus that car? Does that car have a little bit more road scrapes from the bumpers that this car does not? Does this car need to be cleaned inside because it smells like an ashtray, right? There's everything we do from reconditioning to acquiring the car, maybe the car's got higher mileage, is done based upon that specific car. But when they advertise, it's a holistic, it's just bundled in. Let me give X amount of dollars to my advertising sources and give them all my inventory and hope someone finds it. Again, there is value in those current advertising sources. We're not here not to discredit anybody, but we know that we've seen is that typically as much as 50 to 60, sometimes even 70% of your inventory is not getting the proper visibility. And so this is something that we discussed. And the last bullet point on this chart, just to let you know, this is something that we do as a consultation at no charge. We're happy to look at your inventory, look at your holding costs. We'll look at your sell down rates. We'll look at all your inventory at the bin level. And if you had a choice to have $100 to advertise a car, do you want to advertise the car that you could sell without any advertising? Because your salesman could sell it today because they have a hot list on that $20,000 Honda Accord with low miles and great equipment, and grandma drove back and forth to church and the grocery store. Your salesman could sell it tomorrow without any advertising. Don't put any money behind it. But maybe it's that neon green Mini Cooper with high miles that, man, the buyer demand is low. The sell down rate on those cars is incredibly high. How do I retail this car? That's something that, talk to Angela or myself or maybe at LotLinx. We're happy to help you with those. Again, we look at your marketing strategy. We look at your inventory at a VIN level. Where can we see some inefficiencies? Where are you doing things well? Where are things we could do a little better? And again, all that is actually a free consultation. We're happy to do that. Before most dealerships invest any money with us, they take advantage of that free consultation. They look at what they're doing. We analyze that with not only your inventory, but Google Analytics. We look at the traffic driven to your site and your current sources. And there's been times where we've seen some deals that are just crushing it. And we're like, man, man, I think you're doing a great job. Maybe we do things a little bit better. But there's some areas that we've like, oh, we've had these cars 90 days. What is the strategy? What's the current strategy? So let LotLinx have those conversations with you. We'd love to talk to you. We help. I always tell you about LotLinx. If the one thing I'd share with dealers, there's thousands of dealers that are utilizing our platform, and they probably use 1,000 different ways. Don't you agree, Angela?
Oh, 100,000 different ways. Yeah. I mean, I've got dealers that run 5 campaigns. I have dealers that run 1 campaign. I have dealers that run 1 campaign with 1 car and another campaign in a different geo. So the ways are limitless. But I mean, honestly, when it comes to used cars, the top 2 strategies I would recommend to anyone is look at the stuff that's got to go because it's been there too long. Put a campaign strategy around those, and then I call it it's okay to make money on used car strategy. And that's get the stuff before you have to mark it down and focus on those. But like you said, I mean, don't focus on the Chevy Tahoes that there's only one of in KC that you're going to sell in 10 days. Leave that one out. Let us focus on the stuff that historically has aged on you.
Yep. So Nick, we're about done with our presentation with the industry news and how we look at things here at LotLinx. Is there any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Great insights, recommendations. If you do have any questions for Angela Mancuso or Ricky Dearden from LotLinx, just use the chat function here on Zoom, and we'll get to them here in the couple of minutes that we have remaining. And whilst if anyone is thinking of something, we'll give them a chance. Maybe just more tales from the road if they'd like to share. Maybe here in the last 60, 90 days, just a situation that jumps to mind of how you were able to take that neon green Mini Cooper and get it sold, maybe, or just an example of a vehicle that came in on trade and had been on the lot for 180 days, and they used the VIN strategy to get it sold. Just any interesting anecdotes that y'all have come across here recently?
Well, I'll share a story. Angela and I both have, we're not a huge company. We don't have people in every corner of the United States. Sometimes we travel. We visit a store that's not so much in a big metro. And kind of the pain point with them, and Angela, remember the 5 Ionics? We can't mention names and location, but it was basically, listen, guys, I think I do a pretty good job, but my Ionics, because obviously it's a Hyundai store, was a pain for him. And he's like, if you guys could help move these, I'd be more adept to the listing. So it went from potential, small budget. Angela was a partner up, and she, like I said, when I say Angela takes her as a personal quest, you give a car, says, please help me retail this car. Angela she will do the heavy lifting and find the buyer demand. And she got those Ionics in front of the right buyers, and they were not in his backyard, not even close. Help them with them. How
we made shipping banners. We made shipping banners to put over just those, because sometimes in some of the programs, when you put a banner on inventory, it'll go on everything. But he didn't want to offer shipping for everything, but these had to go. And when I found out where the buyers were, they were not anywhere near his store. So we had to get creative. And so that's other ways that we help that, I mean, if we're going to be sending customers to these Ionics right on the website, I want to make sure they're pictured beautifully. I want to make sure what sets you apart is on your VDP. Like what should make this buyer want to come to your store or order it from you and know that they'll get exactly what they want and a good price, and like what makes you different. I think cookie cutter strategies on websites are no longer a good plan.
Before consumers want to stay invisible for as long as they can, you need to tell that story. And so even as a consulting side, Angela and I talk about your vehicle detail page of a website. Websites are designed to be as big as you want them to be as a dealer. You don't want to just be inventory display. You want to stand out. Why should I buy a car from you? Do you offer a certification? Is there a recon? Do you guys recon better than your competitors? That story should be, as a consumer experience, I should be able to find that without having to email you or call you. I know we want to get consumers to call. we want to get them, but if we don't give them the information they want, they will go elsewhere to find it without ever engaging with the website. So we see points like that on a vehicle detail page. We're in Google Analytics quite a bit. We know the good CTAs, what buttons are engaging, or where, that is something that you get with us on a consultative level. Because again, if your vehicle detail page is effective, that's going to bode well for not only what we do for LotLinx, so we drive traffic to that vehicle detail page, but across all your channels, your organic, your SCM, Facebook. As you drive traffic to your vehicle detail page, that's going to help you across all industries. And then if you're selling cars, and I tell you, but that Ioniq story, I'm telling you, if you have some EVs, and that's been kind of one of the pain points. That was one scenario that was just recently, and we had partnered up with them, that group, that store, and that group very well. A lot of it because, again, people put their foot in the water and try to see, do you put your money where your mouth is? And Angela's like, give it to me. So let me get the challenge done, and I'll take care of it. So that was one recent story, Nick, that I am very proud of. Angela is, I mean, you would think like, it's like go run a 3-minute mile. Angela's like, let me get my shoes on. So.
Closing moments here for our webinar titled Discover the Driving Factors to Move Used Inventory Faster with our two experts from LotLinx, Angela Mancuso and Rick Dearden. And Angela, Rick, just to round us out, again, just how can a dealership, if they're struggling to retail those EVs or that 2-wheel drive pickup truck, how can they get started with LotLinx? What are some initial steps they should do to get started with y'all?
I mean, simply call us or email us. Or go to LotLinx.com. We have different levels of engagement. We can look at your Google Analytics if you visit our website, or Nick, if they contact you directly, myself or Angela, anybody at LotLinx will be happy to get them started. It's pretty simple. Again, typically we look at an inventory analysis first. Then we'll look at, do you want us to look at how your marketing is attacking that inventory? Very simple process. Usually takes, the first day is a very simple consultation based on what we see on inventory analysis. As we get inventory feed, usually within 48, 72 hours, where you can get a pretty deep dive analysis from your marketing budget to inventory analysis in your backyard and in other areas as well.
Right. Honestly, but I'm going to piggyback on what he said. I mean, you can't fix what you don't know is broken. And if you're a car girl like me and don't know how to read Google Analytics, when you look at it in a form that looks like inventory management, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I challenge every dealer out there to not spend another marketing penny on a new product until they look at what they spend now on the VIN level. And if someone can't do that for you, give us a shout. We'll do it for free.
Very nice. Great way to round us out. That's Angela Mancuso and Rick Dearden from LotLinx. Angela,
Thank
Rick,
you, Nick.
thank you so much for the great insights.
Thank you.
And on behalf of all of us at Cherokee Media Group, we thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to having you again next time.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.